All right, so we have started. So thank you for everyone who's joining us tonight. My name is Jim Travers. I'm the Director of Transportation, Mobility, and Parking for the City of Norwalk. I'm here with a great team, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking. Um, but I do want to spend a couple of times on just a couple of points. Like this was a really important project for the city to engage in. It was really, a look at Route One, a very busy commercial corridor here in the city. It's a state road in the heart of the city, and we worked with Westcog and the state of Connecticut to create this corridor study. Um, but I can't let this time go by to not acknowledge Mayor Rilling, who has opted not to seek reelection as serving as Norwalk's longest serving mayor. The work like this would not take place had it not been for Mayor Rilling and his vision and his putting a great team in place. And that team really, emanates to all of the consultants and partners that we bring along with us, right? But the work I would be remiss if I didn't recognize my whole entire team, but more importantly, Greg Pacelli, who has worked tirelessly along with the project team to bring us to where we are today. FHI Studio, also known as now IMEG. We started as FHI Studio. We're ending with IMEG. You've been partners with mine for a really long time. We have the best team there. Westcog, really nothing more that I could say about you guys are just awesome. I don't want to, I want to get down to the meat of what we're going to talk about today, because I think what we're seeing today is, evolution of the past 18, 19 months worth of work in public meetings that got us here. So I want to turn it over to Westcog and FHI team to run through, really what the final report is. And then I think, Kristen, you're going to wrap up with some of the next steps, right? I think in a Q&A, like, where does this go? Like, how do we evolve the plan to something real? So take it over, Team FHI.
Right, thanks, Jim. I'm going to share my screen with a presentation where we're going to be talking through the project recommendations. Thank you all for attending tonight. This has been a really exciting project throughout, and your feedback has been integral to the success of this project and hopefully the ongoing implementation of its recommendations. So this is the third and final public meeting of the Norwalk Route 1 Corridor Master Plan Study, which is the western portion of Route 1 in Norwalk, otherwise known as Connecticut Avenue and Van Buren Avenue. I see a lot of familiar names and faces tonight and some new ones. So I definitely want to provide a little bit of time to go do a project overview to catch everyone up to make sure we're all on the same page. But the bulk of the meeting will be focused on the recommendations, of which there are many. It may not take the full hour, but we're working to speak through efficiently, and we can always have additional questions and conversations at the end. So Jim provided a little bit of an overview of the project team. So this study is really being led by the Western Connecticut Council of Governments, which is your regional metropolitan planning organization. So WestCog is a really great organization that does studies like this among many other responsibilities. And Kristen Floberg and her team is represented here tonight, and as well as the City of Norwalk, who has been an important partner throughout. We've been exchanging emails and meeting on a weekly basis for a year and a half now. So the Transportation, Mobility, and Parking team helping deliver some of the transportation solutions that you'll see tonight. And then, of course, our critical partners, the Connecticut Department of Transportation. Route 1 is a state roadway. It's operated by Connecticut DOT. So having partners with them and as having them review carefully our concepts and development of this study has been really an important element of the effort. So I work for FHI Studio. My name is Michael Ahilin, and my deputy project manager, Hannah Brockhouse, is also on the call and will be speaking. I saw Marissa Torallo from AKRF is our subconsultant who has been handling the very challenging task of working through the signal and traffic component. None of what we want to do on this corridor is really possible if it's not feasible from a signal and traffic perspective. So really thank you to AKRF for spearheading that effort. All right, so as I mentioned, this study is really focused on the western portion of Route 1, otherwise known as Connecticut Avenue and Van Buren Avenue within Norwalk. So our study area is focused on that corridor, which runs from roughly the state line to the Spring Hill Avenue, Belden Avenue intersection in the northeast. Whenever you do a study like this, and you do a corridor study, you need to be considering how the recommendations on a particular corridor might spill into the surrounding network. So there is a sort of greater network which is outlined in the blue dashed lines, but by and large, we're really focusing on Route 1 in our conversations tonight. Throughout the study, we've really been looking at the public feedback, whether we've received it online or through email or in in-person events. We did have a project advisory committee, which met 4 times. It was made up of leadership from various city departments, as well as the Connecticut Department of Transportation and the Norwalk Transit District. We did a lot of business and transit outreach. We reached out to more than 70% of businesses on Route 1, which is a lot of businesses, I can tell you that. And we spoke with a lot of transit riders who are historically underrepresented at public meetings. And we wanted to make sure that we had their input on this because they're key stakeholders for the corridor. We also did a bus and walking tour where we got a pedestrian perspective of the corridor. This was a really important opportunity for stakeholders to really understand not just what the challenges of the corridor are, but really what some of the opportunities are as well. We had 2 public meetings. Both of these were in person at Jefferson Elementary. We had the kickoff meeting way back in May 2024, where we initially collected input on some of the challenges you're facing on the corridor, as well as the goals and vision for this project. And then more recently, in March of this year, we had our public workshop, which was the first opportunity the public saw of our concept drawings, where we focused in on a few different areas and gained some feedback. I want to really note that both of these meetings were extremely informative and resulted in some pretty substantial changes to how we thought about this corridor and how we developed it for this planning document. So definitely we'll be noting any comments we received tonight because we've got a really smart group of people who are engaged on this study, and we really appreciate your insight throughout. All right, so when it comes to the vision statement, in partnership with residents, businesses, and government, Route 1, otherwise known as Connecticut Avenue and Van Buren Avenue, in Norwalk will have a coordinated land use and transportation design that will deliver safety for all road users, connect communities to jobs and amenities, enhance quality of life, and create a vibrant gateway to Norwalk. It's certainly a tall order. It's not an easy challenge that we took on by taking a close look at this corridor, but I think this vision statement really highlights the importance of this study and just the general recognition that when you talk about transportation, you're talking about more than just getting from one place to another. We recognize the importance from a regional perspective that this corridor has, but it's also a community. It's made up of a variety of different neighborhoods who need to go to their local grocery store, their local school, as well as a variety of land uses and destinations that are important for the region. So this vision really captures what we're going for in this, and we developed a set of goals to help us achieve that vision. So first is safety. Eliminating fatalities and serious injuries on the corridor is of critical importance for this study and for everything that we've done. Safety has been the backbone of our decision making. Providing convenient access and convenient and accessible connectivity for all modes. Key phrase here is for all modes. So we're thinking not just about drivers, but people who are walking, biking, taking transit. We're also thinking about freight delivery. All of these play into a successful corridor. In part with that is the removing barriers to jobs, education, and services for all, regardless of mode. So again, we're not just thinking about getting from one place to another, but what that really entails, what it really means for someone to be able to access and have a variety of choices for how they access their jobs, their education, and the services that Route 1 offers. We're looking to enhance opportunities for mixed-use sustainable economic development within the study area. Recently, the city of Norwalk has started implementing the new land use zoning code. This was an exciting vision for the corridor as just a mixed-use corridor that's highly walkable. What we wanted to do was create a plan for the corridor itself that really supports this vision. It is a great vision. It is something that we see as attainable, but we don't want the transportation environment to be a barrier to succeeding in that area. We're trying to create an attractive and pleasant gateway into Norwalk as well. For many people, many of the people who are reaching this particular study area, they live outside of Norwalk. So this is an important opportunity for visitors to the area to understand the vibrancy of Norwalk and see it as a very livable place, which is why we've incorporated a lot of elements to beautify the area and make it a more attractive gateway. And then last and certainly not least is developing an implementable and meaningful solutions. Implementable in something, meaning something that's really feasible, something that can result in lasting change and something that is working within the design guidance that has been provided for us and adheres to national best practices in street design. So there's a lot of different study goals wrapped into this, which is, what planning is really all about. These are planning level concepts, and so there's some considerations I want you to remember when we're kind of showing these. These were developed by extensive existing conditions research. We collected a lot of traffic data and did a lot of signal work. We also gained a strong understanding of the issues and opportunities and community concerns by meeting with the public, meeting with key stakeholders over the last year and a half, almost 2 years. We use turning templates for appropriate design vehicles, which is kind of engineering way of saying we're designing for all vehicles who are using this roadway. So we're not just thinking about people driving their own vehicles, but we're thinking about public transit. We're thinking about school buses, box trucks, delivery services. Some of these require larger turning radii, which is something that we've incorporated into design. This is something that we're required to do as part of the Connecticut Department of Transportation's design criteria, which we've incorporated as best we can throughout the study. There are general topographical constraints. Unless if you've walked or biked the corridor, you probably think of the corridor as being relatively flat in some areas. The reality is that there is some topographical constraints that we need to be thinking about. We're trying to limit right-of-way expansion to the extent possible. And just so it's clear, we're not looking to expand the roadway in any ways. There are locations where there is potential property impacts in the long run, but something that would need to be worked out in the future. But the roadway itself would maintain the same width that it operates in today. As we look at these drawings, you may say, oh, hey, there's ramps, ADA ramps for wheelchair access, stroller access. Those might seem like they're missing. Bus shelters might seem like they're missing. Just know that they're there. They're just not always drawn. For the sake of clarity, we wanted to keep these drawings as clean as possible. But we'll be integrating ADA and access to and transit comfort to the best that we can as projects get implemented. All right, so let's switch to the recommendations overview. So this is the corridor. On the left, we have kind of Richards Avenue. So just beyond that is the Darien Town Line. So that's the western extent of our study area going all the way north past Belden Avenue to kind of the Spring Hill intersection. So this is kind of the corridor at a glance. This is kind of all of the recommendations thrown onto a single image. As you can see, everything from addressing sidewalk gaps to creating a multi-use path to transit improvements to crosswalks to geometric improvements, all of these are really integrated. What's not shown here is a really important component, which we'll provide in more detail, is the modernization of signals, which is really making a lot of this possible. So let's start with the pedestrian network expansion, and we'll kind of go mode by mode just to make clear what we're doing here and what we're proposing. So closing the sidewalk gaps. Generally speaking, most of the corridor does have a sidewalk and at least on one side of the road. However, it's not complete. So this study is suggesting that we really complete that network. In some areas, it's easier than others. One of the most challenging areas is just west of the Rampart Road intersection. There is a small but significant sidewalk gap over a creek that would involve the need for a new pedestrian bridge to make that accessible. This is work that's already underway, and funding is already kind of started rolling on that. So it's a nearer term solution for closing that critical gap where we're seeing people walk in the shoulder instead of crossing the street there because of the lack of crosswalks. On the note of crosswalks, you'll see those kind of dark dash circles throughout. Crosswalks are being added wherever possible on this corridor. At almost every single intersection, we're adding crosswalks if there aren't already crosswalks there. We're seeing a lot of people cross mid-block, frequently at locations that do not have crosswalks. And so we're just addressing that through design. We're allowing for more crosswalks and enable people to cross more safely to avoid those sort of mid-block crossings. And then what's not shown on this graphic is something called a leading pedestrian interval. These are important safety improvements. They're proven safety countermeasures that give pedestrians a little bit of an advance uh, before vehicles are moving to get across the street. So there might be a 3 to 5 second head start that pedestrians would get before vehicles are in motion. And this is a really important safety improvement and something that's really only made possible through the modernization of signals on the corridor. So here's just a couple images. You see people kind of crossing at this particular location near the Shell gas station. There's not crosswalks, so people still need to get to these destinations. So putting in some crosswalks where there aren't currently is going to go a long way in improving safety on the corridor. The image on the right is that Rampart Road intersection area where you have that missing crosswalk. It kind of looks like the shrubbery has just kind of overgrown, excuse me, missing sidewalk. The shrubbery has overgrown on the sidewalk. The reality is there's no sidewalk actually there. So to cross at this location, you need to go into the shoulder. Here's just a quick aerial of it. This is the area we're talking about here. So Rampart Road coming in here. I think this is PC Richards right here. So you have, crosswalks on 3 legs here. On this section here, there's no sidewalk. So you see people kind of walking in this location. So this would be addressed through a pedestrian bridge. There's a creek here. So this is, even though you might not realize it, this is actually a bridge right here. So putting in a pedestrian bridge would close that gap. Also note that we're adding a crosswalk here. So there's a crosswalk at all 4 legs at the intersection. And then something you might notice if you have really good eyesight is this right here expands the sidewalk into what's called a multi-use path. So it would accommodate both cyclists and pedestrians on this section of the corridor. So on that note, let's go over to the bike network expansion. So one thing that I want to pause here and just talk about very briefly is if you came to the workshop and I saw some familiar names, who joined us in the meeting tonight, your advocacy at that workshop really helped shape this plan. We had read in previous planning efforts that there was a suggestion that cyclists should use Flax Hill Road or some other roadway to go east-west. And although many cyclists will choose that, every single time we were on the corridor, we saw cyclists. Every single intersection almost, I think, where we collected data, we had cyclists going through those intersections. So we know there's documented use of cyclists on this corridor. And your advocacy at this meeting pointed out that cyclists need this corridor the same reason that drivers do. There's a lot of destinations on this corridor. This is your grocery store, it's your hospital, it's your elementary school. It's a variety of different destinations that you need to reach on 2 wheels in addition to, and not just on 4. So for this reason, we decided to go back to the drawing board and really look for ways that we could have bicycle infrastructure on the corridor. So that's how the multi-use path really came to be. In some areas, it's a lot easier than others. I would say the eastern portion where there's lower traffic and there's public right-of-way, providing a multi-use path is something that's more feasible in the short term. Longer term, the rest of the corridor, particularly west of Scribner Avenue, where there's a lot of constraints, working with existing landowners and perhaps working with new development that comes along to enable a multi-use path on the northerly side of Route 1 could really work to benefit the overall network. So in addition to the multi-use path, what this does is not just provide local access to some of these destinations, it helps build out the bike network. Roads such as Richards Avenue already have bicycle infrastructure on them, but unless if you're going just north-south, this multi-use path would intersect that and provide kind of a full network to work with. So Keeler Avenue, we're proposing some bicycle infrastructure on Scribner Avenue. Previous planning efforts have suggested at Stewart Avenue. There are other locations that could really be connected. And then, of course, most notably, the Norwalk River Valley Trail, providing spurs that would connect to that would give access to really a regional bike system, which is a really exciting win for cycling in the area. So just a couple examples. We heard or we have heard, we have seen, we have documented data that there are cyclists on the corridor. So working to design for people of all ages and abilities was became a really important component of the work of the last 6 months. And what that might look like, here's an example of the Norwalk River Valley Trail at Riverside Avenue, a 10-foot multi-use path, which would accommodate both cyclists and pedestrians safely, is something we're looking at expanding for the full corridor. All right, and we'll talk about transit before we switch over to drivers. So improving bus stops, this corridor is really highly used by transit riders. So improving bus stops with shelters and seating at nearly every location. There's a handful of locations where it's just too constrained, but there's certain improvements that can still be done at those locations. But generally speaking, we're looking to improve bus stops everywhere with shelters and seating. Optimizing the bus stop locations. So this is something that we noticed in the Norwalk Transit District's latest work in their redesign of the network. So some of the routing changed, so we're kind of designing with that, but they also provided guidance about how frequently some of these stops are spaced. And also, we're really working to bring those stops closer to the intersections, because what we heard from transit riders is that they frequently have to run across the street when there's no crosswalk just to get to the most direct path to get to the opposing bus stop. This can be really challenging. It presents some safety concerns. So by bringing the bus stops a little bit closer to the intersections where there's particularly crosswalks, pedestrians or transit users will be able to cross Route 1 more safely. Another component that's not on this graphic is the signal component. There is the opportunity for transit signal priority. If you're not familiar with what that is basically if a bus has passengers and it's running behind schedule, it will extend the green, extend the yellow so that the bus is able to get through and not be stopped at a red light unnecessarily. So get through and kind of drop passengers off. This can go a long way in improving transit reliability without reducing or having minimal impact on vehicular operations in the area. So it's a really exciting opportunity, and it's something that's already being looked at within the study area. And here's just a couple images, something that we did when we were doing the transit outreach when speaking with riders. Here's an example of someone trying to catch their bus. The bus's frequency makes it really, you really don't want to miss your bus because then you'll be stuck waiting for 20 minutes or more to catch the next one. So really providing convenient access to these stops is important. This image on the right is from New York City, where there's shelters frequently, as well as seating at those shelters to just improve the overall comfort for transit riders. All right, so if maybe you don't ride transit, maybe you don't walk, maybe you don't bike, but you do drive on the corridor. So I'm going to hand it over to Hannah, who's going to talk about some of the improvements to traffic operations.
Hi, everyone.
Oops, wait, one more thing.
Yep.
Sorry. I forgot about this one slide. So one other thing that we're implementing or looking to implement are these bus pullouts. Here's an example at Maple Avenue intersection, which is one of the more popular stops because of the location of the hospital. So you can see some dedicated space for bus stops at this location. So sorry about that, but go ahead, Anna.
No, that's a great kind of note to end on, because what I want to emphasize from the beginning here is that this corridor is as we've been saying all night, it's a complex corridor. It manages a lot of regional destinations. It's really important for the city, and also all of these important city kind of corridors cross it. So the series of kind of sections that I'm going to walk through, I'm going to ask you to forgive me for going into a little bit of detail despite it being almost 7 o'clock on a Monday. But I want to really illustrate some of the improvements and some of the kind of really close look some of the close looks that we've been able to take on at some of these locations to fine tune what is out there today and allow the roadway network as it is to accommodate more use and more multimodal users without compromising operations for traffic and for drivers. So firstly, from a kind of roadway geometry, the way that the road functions, Route 1 has changed dramatically over the last 50 to 100 years. As increased big box retail has transformed the western portion of the corridor, as volumes on kind of the city's north-south network have increased in scale and importance. And so right now, as it exists today, the traffic volumes reflect a very complex, modern urban environment with lots of turning movements, with a full kind of suite of signal phasing. That's a lot for managing. That's a lot to manage, and so taking a look throughout the corridor at all of these locations allows us to make sure that each of these locations are safe, and kind of the turning movements that there are visible, and kind of are working with the traffic through the signal that they should be. So this has been really important throughout, but the best example of this is Scribner Avenue, which is an important destination, or it's an important regional destination in and of itself because of the traffic flows that use Scribner to get to where they're going. And there were a huge number of crashes along this corridor, as Michael alluded to when we were discussing our kind of goals for the study with Vision Zero, our first and foremost kind of design element that we were looking to achieve here. But Scribner Avenue not only was the top crash location on the corridor, it's among the city's top crash locations. So this was an extremely important focus for us, and we're able to achieve a lot with our concept. I'm not going to go through the full list. The full list is on your screen, but focusing on a couple of key things that make a huge difference with those first couple of bullets. So one thing that you might not necessarily see, as you're kind of driving the corridor day to day, especially if you're kind of passing through and not turning, is that the Scribner kind of north-south alignment really presents a skew that can make it a little bit more complicated and geometrically to accommodate all of the modern traffic kind of movements within the signal. And so that also kind of limits or kind of confuses or makes the kind of turning movement geometry a little bit more complex and presents some safety challenges. And so the first thing that we were prioritizing with this design is to kind of slightly realign the intersection to make some of the opposing movements be able to kind of operate at once within the signal cycle. And that frees up a lot of time so that we're able to do a lot more with the rest of the signal cycle, incorporating a lot, kind of making the whole signal kind of work more efficiently. The second item that I want to call your attention to is the prevalence of angled crashes at this location led us to really consider what we could do to improve safety for the turning vehicles, because that's a major contributing factor to those crash types. And so one of the most important ones that we wanted to take a look at is the movement if you're kind of making a left turn going west and westbound on Route 1 and making a left turn onto Scribner Avenue going south. When you're making that maneuver, sometimes it's kind of difficult to see where you're going, and there's a kind of a topographical issue as well that you're confronting. And so by channelizing that move with a new median, we're making a little bit more clear where traffic is going and separating those opposing vehicles a little bit more. And last but certainly not least, as Michael has been speaking to, we want to accommodate all vehicles that are making all maneuvers and all modes through this design, and we're able to really connect the network for bicyclists and pedestrians through this location by upgrading the signal timing, as well as the new multi-use path on the north side of the street, and connecting to the existing Scribner Avenue bike lanes that are a little bit south of 95. The last thing I want to point out with Scribner Avenue is something that we've been kind of thinking about at several locations throughout the corridor, is the regional kind of flows of traffic and how that changes the dynamic and changes what we need to accomplish in making these improvements. So we know that Scribner Avenue is really important because for traffic using the western that's kind of using the western portion of the roadway, a lot of them are using the Scribner Avenue ramps, either exit 14 or the I-95 ramp across from Cosset Road to kind of access Route 1. And so one of the things that we heard early on was that kind of queuing of vehicles that are going, that are getting onto Scribner going southbound, but having to make a non-dominant move, a left move onto the highway on-ramp, is kind of creating some frustration. And we were able to accommodate that move kind of in to kind of make that move a little bit easier to navigate for the heavy volumes of vehicles that are making that left turn with this new roundabout approach for the intersection, which also can then serve as a gateway into Golden Hill and Flax Hill, as well as accommodate, multimodal users. So that's a lot of detail on that one intersection, but we think it's a really important case study in terms of what we're able to accomplish along the corridor. And with that, I want to kind of transition to talking about some of the other geometric improvements that we're able to make. Throughout the corridor, we look to kind of match the existing and proposed and kind of long range use of the corridor traffic volumes and kind of network connections with the land uses that surround the corridor and the available space on the roadway. And so there are opportunities where we were able to look at smaller kind of areas of the corridor to reallocate space that was previously turn pockets or lanes or kind of other sections of roadway. But the key opportunity here is along Van Buren Avenue. So as you kind of go around the bend, around Elmcrest Terrace and head north on Route 1. This is an area that we identified really early on as an opportunity because the traffic volumes that are using this section of Route 1 are much lower compared to the east. So there's only 13,000 vehicles approximately using that section of roadway compared to about 20,000 down further along the western portion of the corridor. And along this section of roadway, you can kind of really see it as you walk along it or drive along it even. The destinations are neighborhood focused. The elementary school, the hospital, and this was also supported in the data that we gathered through the origin destination analysis, where we saw much lower percentages of the traffic volumes that are using the roadway were connected to the regional highway system and regional destinations. So this is really a neighborhood street that's got a lot of extra kind of capacity of the roadway. And by kind of readjusting the space for this underutilized corridor, we can accommodate a huge variety of improvements for the multimodal users that are using the roadway today. We can allocate space for turn pockets to better manage those turning movements as opposed to kind of long through lanes that some people are turning from. We can accommodate pull-out bus stops and the infrastructure to support them and make riding transit kind of not just available, but comfortable and reliable. We can incorporate a 10-foot multi-use path and an amenity zone to separate that path from traffic so that it's, again, more comfortable and appealing for a variety of users and a variety of ages, especially with the presence of the elementary school. And we can provide a bypass lane to support the queuing that occurs at the elementary school during peak periods. So this is a huge opportunity that we see, as we know that as traffic patterns associated with schools are really particular, we know that there will be some needed kind of next steps to look at the feasibility and consider kind of additional connections for the elementary school. So that's kind of an early action item on our list. But this proposed alignment really offers a lot of benefit and for the currently underutilized space. And so as we've been speaking to kind of throughout for a while here, the improvements that we've been able to make, that we've been able to design for all users of the corridor really hinge on a thorough review of and kind of upgrading of the over 20 traffic signals that exist on this stretch of roadway. Over this, it's almost 3 miles. The a lot of different components of the recommendations all tie into how the signals work, and that's why you see so much kind of highlighted on this map here. But each of these kind of components can tie into what we're able to accomplish with a full modernization of the traffic signal plans across the corridor. And as Michael mentioned earlier, I think Marissa's still on, and she was really integral in Marissa at AKRF was really integral in kind of developing and iterating through the design to make all of this possible. And so one of the kind of key issues that we heard at the beginning and over again is that that traffic on Route 1 is really unreliable. There's a lot of stop and go, especially between Scribner and about Stewart. Disruptions on 95 really have a strong impact to what it feels like to be using this corridor. There's a lot of kind of confusion if you're less familiar with it, and some people say that they avoid the area if at all possible because of these pain points. And so this was a really high priority for us going in. And what we learned through our kind of evaluation is that a lot of the existing traffic signal infrastructure is operating with outdated traffic coordination plans that don't reflect kind of the modern urban nature of the corridor. So as I was mentioning earlier, the turning movements are much more complex, and there are more of them than kind of some of this was originally designed for. The volumes are just higher, and they're reflecting kind of more and more regional destinations. And there are major city streets. So the kind of traffic signals along Route 1, you're not hitting traffic at a side street. Those are also kind of important destinations that people are trying to reach. So we're able to kind of through an extensive kind of review and modernization of the signal timing plans throughout the corridor, we're able to better accommodate regional multimodal demand. This means kind of a lot of different things, right? We can accommodate those turning movements. We can kind of match up some of those movements to operate concurrently. But one other component that I want to highlight that kind of Michael touched on a little while ago is that that we are able to do so without compromising the multimodal users of the corridor. We know that pedestrian demand has increased on Route 1 over time, and so oftentimes what might happen is somebody pushes a light to get a pedestrian kind of walk signal, and that might throw the signal cycle out. And for the I guess apologies for the technical little kind of details here, but when you do that over and over again over the course of the corridor, it can really throw the whole signal progression out of whack. And so really redesigning these signal phases from the start and kind of taking a holistic look at them allows us to accomplish a lot more with the same kind of timing, or with a reasonable timing. So all of the corridor improvements can be done without without any kind of new technology. But what we're able to also offer is a key recommendation called adaptive traffic control systems. And what you if you're not kind of a traffic wonk, what you kind of might not be familiar with is this is a new best practice technological innovation that can be used for corridors like these that the city of Norwalk has been really pushing, and it uses real-time traffic sensors and algorithms to constantly adjust green time based on current demand, and so it can really smooth flow effectively on a busy corridor like Route 1, much better than traditional timing plans. That's going to allow for transit signal priority, as Michael was alluding to earlier, and And it can help just adjust for kind of the things that happen on Route 1 that might not happen on a smaller local street. If there's a disruption on 95, so more people are using Route 1, it will adjust for that demand. And so the stats that you can see on your screen are really reflective of what that best-in-class kind of technology can offer for this corridor, with a 10% decrease in average travel time and 12% decrease in stops. And that reflects hundreds of hours of kind of individual vehicles using the corridor over the course of a day. And the impact that all of this kind of collective modernization and improvement can have. And so kind of moving through this, the last kind of element of the recommendations that we want to highlight is certainly not least is the experience of what it is like to kind of travel Route 1 and the importance of reconnecting the neighborhoods that currently kind of have this barrier crossing them. We heard a lot about the fact that the corridor, doesn't have that kind of community feel, and it can really feel disjointed and disconnected from the rest of the city, despite the fact that it's a real gateway. And a lot of people visit Norwalk because of the regional destinations that are here that might not otherwise be visiting the city. And so this is the first step, or the kind of front door to Norwalk in many ways. We've got a lot of improvements toward kind of aesthetics and beautification within the plan that range from big to small, with large-scale ideas like a microforest at the end of Elmcrest Terrace, to small-scale improvements like gateways and public art that can really reflect the community of Norwalk. So one key example of this that we've heard throughout and we've really kept top of mind is that we've heard throughout that the corridor really lacks trees, and trees can have a huge impact on the way that a corridor feels for all users. And this has been something that the city has been focusing on for several years now. When you have more trees, you are kind of more protected from all seasons of weather, whether that's you're not baking in the hot sun, it feels a little bit less noisy, it's more comfortable to not be in a vehicle, but also it's a more pleasant and attractive environment. And so if you're visiting the area, places with trees feel like places that you treat better and have a sense of pride and a sense of place. So our recommendations reflect this, with opportunities to do that, and we've kept kind of the incorporation of things like amenity zones, which can accommodate those street trees, as an important priority throughout. So all of these recommendations are aimed at reflecting the neighborhood that Route 1 sits within and connects to, and making the corridor as a whole more comfortable and accessible and welcoming. So with all of that detail, I'm going to pass it back over to Michael to talk about how all of this gets done.
Thanks, Hannah. So as you've probably gathered, there's just a lot that goes into planning a corridor like this. And when it comes to implementation, we need to be thoughtful and how we go about implementing this. So one thing that I really want to note and highlight is that this is a planning study. There's further iterations of design, analysis, and engagement that will need to occur before this can be successfully implemented. So I really view plans as really the start of a process, not the end of one. So working out and teasing out some of the complexity of this to develop solutions that really adequately address your concerns is certainly a goal of this study, but also an ongoing goal that is a part of the implementation path. None of this is really possible without funding. So the action plan really incorporates a variety of different funding opportunities at the federal, state, and local levels. We don't know what's to come from the federal infrastructure law, which I believe expires sometime late next year. However, there's been a strong focus on safety, and there's a lot of elements in this plan that could continue to be funded if the infrastructure law continues to have that focus on safety, which hopefully it will. All right, so when it comes to the approach, we don't want to see this section of Route 1 to all be under construction all at the same time. So we've sort of divided it into near-term, medium-term, and long-term actions. So In the near term, the bicycle and pedestrian bridge at Rampart Road, which I talked about, is one of the priorities. Work there is already underway to get that implemented. When it comes to Van Buren Avenue, there's a lot of opportunity to do this sooner rather than later, just because it has fewer constraints. There's lower traffic volumes, and the right-of-way that does exist is on just to the east of the corridor is owned by the Connecticut DOT, so it is part of, the public right-of-way in a sense. So all of these kind of make it a little bit more of a low-hanging fruit to have those improvements there. In the medium term, because of the need for safety improvements at this location, we've put Scribner Avenue and Cosset Road as real priorities. There's a lot of community support in this area, but also the bridge that kind of connects those two intersections, the Route 1 and the Cosset Road intersection, is one of the oldest in the area. So it's likely to be replaced in the medium term, and something that can be done when that is replaced is really incorporating the opportunities that we've highlighted for Scribner Avenue and Cosset Road. In the longer term is the Connecticut Avenue portion west of Scribner Avenue. This is just a highly trafficked area. Some of the signal improvements can be done in the much nearer term, but when it comes to the multi-use path and some of the infrastructure changes, that's going to take some time. It doesn't mean that this has to be, 30 years from now or anything like that, but some of the elements will require new development to occur to really integrate some of that kind of access management. So reducing the number of driveways would need to be worked out with as the project properties are redeveloped. So for that reason, we've put it in the long-term bucket. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that every element of that has to be in the distant future. It can be done in a piecemeal approach. But the important thing is we now have a plan. It's in draft form, but it enables us to think holistically about the long-term vision for Route 1. We believe this to really be a bold vision for Route 1, where we're balancing those regional needs within a local context. And what we're doing is we're really working with all of these constraints, whether it be traffic or design constraints, to really develop a corridor that improves transportation choice and livability. What we've created is something, really for everyone, all the different kinds of road users. And we've heard from a lot of different kinds of road users throughout this project. So developing high quality transit facilities, a fully connected pedestrian and bicycle network, increased tree canopy, and improved traffic flow. This plan identifies a path for that to be implemented and for it to really be possible. So we're going to move into Q&A, but before I kind of take down my screen, because we can go back to the presentation as we need, but in the event that anyone has to run off or head to dinner or anything like that, here's some contact information. So Kristen with the Western Connecticut Council of Governments, her email address is on the screen, Greg from Norwalk, and then me. All of our email addresses here. You can also go to the project website where we'll be posting the meeting presentation and the recording, as well as the final report and the concept plans for your review. So that will be available shortly on the project website, which the URL is here, where you can just Google Route 1 Corridor Study WestCog, and it'll take you right there. So again, thank you all for your participation, and we look forward to hearing any of your comments or questions.
Hey, Michael, it's Jim. Before
Yes.
we open it up to Q&A, I just wanted to acknowledge, some of our elected officials who have joined us this evening. I know that their time is going to be limited because there is caucus this evening. But, I think these folks have been with us throughout the entirety of this process. Many of the improvements are being take place in their districts. But I just wanted to acknowledge, our appreciation and support from our elected officials. I happen to think that we have the best common council in the United States, but that's just me. But I wanted to make sure that we recognize them before I believe they have to sign off. So why don't we open up for some Q&A?
Thanks, Jim.
All right, so I think the best way to go ahead with Q&A is you have two options. You could submit a question in the chat, or you can raise your hand and I can allow you to unmute yourself. So, and I could also allow you to put your camera on if you'd like. So we'll take any questions.
I think while we have questions being thought about, I do want to point out one thing. So, I think Michael, you brought up some of the issues with the pedestrian bridge. I think that, we know that we heard that in large numbers from people, who are concerned about traveling down walking on the corridor and really being forced out into, competing with cars on road, and, certainly challenging, if you have a stroller in hand or a cart. But, I think I want you to put something on your schedule for everybody here. Like, I'm not going to steal all of the thunder, but I am going to tee it up for Thursday morning at 9:30, opposite of Rampart Road on Route 1. Please join us for a press announcement where we're going to have some really exciting information to do that and just talk about, really right on the field what that could be. So, that is really that came out. Michael, I think you really hit the nail on the head earlier when you talked about the commitment of the community for improved bike ped access, right? And I think, this is another where we really heard the, the pedestrian component to this, in strong numbers. And, I think it is very interesting. I think it's exciting that we get to, support something even in the early stages of the study, right?
Definitely. That's great news.
It looks like you might have done such an amazingly wonderful job that you don't have any questions, right? We have a question. Garcia.
Good.
Krista, you got a question or?
Sure, I can read it out loud. So this is from Garcia. Will the study address the intersection where the entrance and the exit of I-95 on CT next to REI and across from gas station? Crosswalks and dangerous wrong way crashes like the situation which happened in West Haven.
Yes, definitely. So all of the intersections that we mentioned will have concept plans associated with them. So at that particular location, yes, we've noticed kind of the crash rate there, the crashes that are occurring. We've updated the signal timing in that location. We've also added a crosswalk just to allow for safer improvements. I'm not exactly sure about kind of the details of the signal timing, but most likely would accommodate what we were talking about, a leading pedestrian interval. So pedestrians would be more visible than they are today at that location, which I believe there's only one crosswalk on one leg of the intersection. I'll have to double check that. But this will actually add kind of two crosswalks to provide that safer crossing there. But you might kind of be raising the point about just, the driver perspective. Certainly, yes, we've been taking a careful look at this location and seeing if there were any geometric improvements that could offer some solutions there and work to prevent some crashes. So definitely something we've taken a look at.
And we continue to work with the DOT, and I know under, Commissioner Eucalito's direction, they're really looking at the issue of wrong way driving onto the highway, and there is a plan to address this intersection or this on point. But I also think to Michael's point earlier is about right sizing the road that clarifies some of the direction that you're going to be going in there. But I think we have another question coming in.
Sure. This question is from Jay. Getting more. Okay. What will the best way for residents and businesses within the study area to follow the project and provide input?
Yeah,
So I could start
Sure.
with this one if you would like.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for the first step is going to be posting the final plan, the full concept plan, and also the narrative report. That's going to be hosted on the WestCog website on the study page. I think the best way moving forward is probably going to be staying on top of Norwalk, the city of Norwalk's social media, right? You usually post any updates there on project progress if a certain project is going to happen, but there's anything else anyone else would like to add.
Kristen, when do we think that we're going to get the plan up on the website?
It'll be this month.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, and then this will
month.
also be recorded a copy of this will be recorded onto the website as well. And when would that be available?
That I think we'll try to get up this week.
All right.
as long as we're able to.
All right. That sounds great.
And I can
Okay.
share the screen real quick.
Sure.
So here's the project website. If you'd like, you can submit a comment here on the project website, and we get notified when you do. And then the project deliverables, so the plan will be posted kind of under that one, and then under public engagement, you'll see a copy of the presentation and recording. So it's all available on the website.
Great.
Okay, we have a couple more questions that came in. So the next one is from Emily B. Sorry, I joined a little late, but I have two questions. The first question is, how will improvements on Route 1 connect to existing and planned routes in Norwalk's pedestrian and bikeway transportation plan, i.e. the links to neighborhoods, schools, parks, transit hubs, and the Norwalk River Valley Trail? So can we go back in the presentation, Michael?
Yes. Sorry, I was just pulling up the slide. Here we go. Let me make this bigger.
And then I think this is very related, so I think we can cover it probably in the same answer. Her second question is there a plan to close key gaps in the east-west and north-south bike walk network using the Route 1 corridor and its parallel streets, Flax Hill Avenue and West Cedar Street?
All right, so hopefully I'll be able to answer this succinctly, but please flag if there's something I miss. So yes, the planning document that you mentioned was integral for our initial development of thinking about the corridor concept. And we did take a look at Flax Hill and West Cedar, and we did provide some suggestions for having a bicycle infrastructure connection that continues possibly all the way to the community college via kind of neighborhood streets, including West Cedar. One of the things that the planning document that you mentioned noted was this bike connection here, kind of crossing Stewart Avenue, heading to kind of the Sono area. So we've kind of incorporated that into our planning and assuming that that was really going to happen. What this multi-use path will do is really connect all of these north-south connections. So the existing one at like Richards, Keeler Avenue, Scribner Avenue, Cedar Street, Stewart Avenue, the Stevens Street bike lane, and kind of all the way up to the school. So you mentioned a variety of different destinations, and we think that this not only addresses the previous planning that has been done, but also builds even more new connections. So for instance, Scribner Avenue, the bike lane, I think, stops just south of Cosset Road. So we found a solution for getting that across I-95 and across Route 1 through a multi-use path. So we're really looking to not just view this as a corridor study, but as an opportunity to build out the bicycle and pedestrian network to get to a lot of these destinations. Did I miss any other points from that question?
So I think if we could either take it from either Garrett or Greg, why don't you fill us in on where we stand for, excuse me, on Flax Hill, and Greg, Cedar. Because you've been the one pushing our budget for Cedar Street. So if you one of you guys want to fill us in there?
Garrett, if you want to, you want to jump in, or
You're not working. Can't hear you. Nope. Greg, you want to take it over?
yeah, absolutely. So I think so.
Garrett is laryngitis.
So Kristen, would you be able, or Michael, would you be able to put the map back up?
Sure.
Might be a little helpful. So I think the main thing is, we connecting, obviously making those connections to the Route 1 corridor and kind of building off of that, and West Cedar Street especially is one of those instances where, we can kind of expand on the multi-use path network and kind of expand into the more neighborhood connector streets that provide connections into Route 1. We had talked about Scribner Avenue as well as another, making that connection as well. Especially on the north and the south side of Scribner. So making that, connection from, Route 1 onto West Cedar Street, and then again onto Scribner Avenue, to provide access to those neighborhood streets, where we're able to make those connections from more residential areas and to get you on those connections out to Route 1, and then even southbound as well, on Scribner, heading south of the proposed roundabout. And that will take you onto the bike lane, dedicated bike lane that's currently ongoing right now, construction where, on the Flax Hill Road section, where between Highland Avenue and Low Street, Arbor Avenue, which was just completed. And then the next phase of the Flax Hill Road project, which will take you all the way to Washington Street as well. So we're looking to just expand upon that bike network, as you alluded to, and just building upon those, city capital projects that we're expanding the network on. And this would just, make it even, making it even expand a network, with that large connection on Route 1.
Great, thank you. Next question.
Okay, we have one more question. And if there's any more that you have, please feel free to send them in. We'll be here for a bit longer. So this next question is from Garcia. They're asking, has any work been done to address the lack of signs near the school zone? Will all school zone warning signs will all school zone warning signs meet the federal guidelines near Jefferson School and also the hospital zones?
Garrett, are you on yet? Yes, no? Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
You can hear you now. You want to fill us in on where we are with the school zone?
Yeah, absolutely. So fantastic. So I'm glad I could make this connection. But so this is something that we've actually been systematically looking at as a city from a whole. As part of looking at potential short-term solutions, the city just passed legislation for automatic traffic safety enforcement devices. And one of those requirements is that we do have standardized school zones throughout the city. So we've been working school by school to get these applications done. We're currently in the process, but our goal is to have every school safety zone updated, and that includes all the signage, including other modern devices too, like school zone flashers at our schools, feedback signs, and then as we look at candidate locations, I also want to add that safety enforcement devices such as speed cameras are just another tool that we can help provide safety around the school. So we weren't able to touch about that in the presentation, but that's certainly something that's in their toolbox, and look forward for more information coming through about that throughout the year.
Thank you, Garrett. I don't see any other questions. We'll hang on maybe for another couple minutes, and if anyone has any last questions, please feel free to send them through the chat, or you can raise your hand and I can unmute you.
While we wait to see others, let's just, we can chat it out a little bit. I think we talked a little bit about, Hannah, you talked a little bit about adaptive, right? The city has been, really, successful with our adaptive implementation. We will plug, Norwalk was the first city in the state to introduce adaptive signal technologies. We piloted that out on West Avenue, and most recently on 5 of the intersections on Route 1 associated with the Wegmans opening. You drive that portion of the corridor, feels different than the upper portion of the corridor. So we believe that we set the path to move this forward. And I think also you talked about transit signal priority, right? And again, we will plug Norwalk as being we are going to be the first city in the state to introduce transit signal priority. And that is, as Michael said earlier, gives the bus, with passengers the opportunity to extend green so they can make it through the intersection. It keeps them on schedule, and that's going to be really exciting. And that is also one of the reasons really why we looked at, enhancing and sometimes relocating the bus stops to get it on the far side of the intersection, not to interfere with signal operations, but to really get that plan place, and also to have that bus pull in and really have not have to be in the midst of traffic where a bus driver is dealing with other things that are going on. Really get to focus in on the customer. So we've been working very closely with Matt Pence at the Norwalk Transit District. Another shout out to Matt Pence. He's an amazing partner. But a lot of firsts, I think, going on here, and a lot of work with as we heard from Mayor-elect Smith in her campaign, we are going to be putting in our budget retiming of the city's traffic signals to reduce some of that driver frustration. We have not retimed the city's traffic signals in its entirety, maybe ever. We really can't find out that we've done this. So we've done piecemeal here and there, but this would be a very comprehensive citywide movement to this, and it'll also add the benefit of adaptive when we can introduce those, because we're going to be creating that baseline. We've gotten the opportunity to work with Marissa Torello from AKRF. I think one of the leaders, in this field, and had been another amazing partner here. But lots of great things happening there to help to reduce driver frustration, and I think a lot of things on the on our burner for moving it forward. Greg talked before about our request for our capital budgets this year are going to include some of the missing pedestrian connections that were caught in the study. And I think that's really important, and people should understand, right? We have not had real comprehensive neighborhood studies done like this in the city. And a lot of the projects that we've been working on are really piecemeal and they're community driven. But this is really the first comprehensive study that we've undertaken. And this will be the baseline that we get to use to find funding sources. We've been very fortunate to find a number of funding sources, and I remain optimistic that we will get them there, because they have they have an opportunity to really create sustainable change in our community. So we're hopeful, and we'll continue to look down that path. I do know that we have the support of Mayor-elect Smith, and this has been about she was an avid supporter of our Complete Streets legislation. I think we had here. I don't know if she's still on board. I'm looking, and I think that we might have lost some of our council people, but they have been super strong advocates about improvements, particularly around COSIT. We've been brought out to community meetings, so lots of interesting things will come out of this, and it will be the backbone for us to look in projects in the future and have it here and wait to I didn't get that last question that was going through. I was trying to speak and read at the same time, and it doesn't work for me. But I'll let you to kick in, Kristen. I was just trying to fill a little airtime.
Thank you, Jim. So the next question is from Thomas B. Are there any plans to incorporate bicycle detection ahead of the intersections on major bike corridors as part of the adaptive signalization?
So yes, right. That is that's a great call out, and somebody who knows technology is there. So we've started to implement that. That's really the opportunity to do that is greater when we have dedicated bike lanes, right? When we have a place that we can set video detection to capture a cyclist, that can also help a signal respond very similar as if it was a car. So as we install more bike lanes, we do create zones, and we can we would look at increasing the technology that goes there that would detect bicyclists, most certainly.
These are great questions. Smart group we've got.
Thomas B also asks, is that being thought of on the Connecticut Ave path?
So One of the challenges with Connecticut Avenue, as we talked about before, is it is a state road, and the signals, the majority of the signals fall under state purview, right? We don't have a control over what happens with state. They use a little bit of a different technology than we use. So. I think what we can do is, we've worked with our partners at the state. I think they're amazing. We've got them to pilot the adaptive, and I think we've shown them that it has been super successful here. We actually are looking at now, quantifying that success so that we could be supportive of additional rollouts. And I think we can continue that same process, right, of looking at detection, but it's not been something that I believe that they have implemented yet, but that doesn't mean that we can't look as another Connecticut for Norwalk first.
Not seeing any more questions in the chat. Um, Anyone have anything else they would like to chat about before we end the meeting?
I started the meeting with a thank you, and I have to end with a thank you to an incredible team, right? And it really starts with my team. I am blessed to get to work with the best, most dedicated people every day. There's a number of them on here today, and I appreciate everything that they do. They got us to here. It was a lot of work to get to this point. FHI Studio, IMEG, you have been incredible partners for many, many years. You have been the backbone of many of the success stories of the tales that we have written together with studies that we've done similar to this. Westcog, just incredible partners, and always added resources, and always there for us, right? You are true, leaders in the world of council of governments. From a city perspective, we appreciate you and everything that you do. But I would be remiss if we didn't recognize, the efforts that got us here today. It's been monumental. This is 19 months of work that came together. We asked Greg, who heads our Bike Walk Commission, to kind of lead these efforts. Greg has been amazing, but he's really amazing in every single thing that he does. And tomorrow he's going to be mad at me for saying that and calling him out publicly. That's fine. It's really been a great path to get us here. Michael, you've been an incredible leader in this, and bringing us on board, and getting a thing, and really driving these community meetings, getting people out there and talking. This has been fantastic, and I really look forward to being able to start peeling some of the pieces of the onion off here, and start taking some of these processes. I think this plan is really great because it is very diverse, and we have a number of things. I think, when you look at the city's adoption of complete streets legislation, is really looking at all road users, and this plan did that, right? It addresses the vehicular and removing, driver frustration. It addresses, significant pedestrian connections that exist today, and how we're going to fix that. How we're actually going to bring, expand the city's multi-use trail to, down to Route 1. But the important thing is, it connects it at multiple points in this too. So it gives you other avenues to get back onto the NRVT, right, and start to create that network, so you have an opportunity to do it. It's just been a pleasure to work with every single one of you. I thank you for everything that you do, and I would just encourage us to get it on the website as quickly as possible, because I think there's going to be lots of people that are going to be interested in seeing the results of this work. So thank you very much on behalf of the city. Oh, and I should also thank you, Mayor Rilling, on his way out the door, right? Because he really supported us to get us here. And I think that we have an incredible leader, teeing up to join our work with Mayor-elect Smith. So we're really excited to work with her as well as all of the new incoming council members and existing council members. And then Thomas, I think, said one more comment, but I think we have a good comment on the way out the door.
Yes, we have one more comment. I really like the path being on the north side as it goes past the light for exit 14. Is there anything that helps ease the path crossing at Cedar? Sorry if I missed that part, and thanks for the great work.
Yeah, you didn't
Michael.
miss that part. I just didn't touch on it in any great detail. So what we're looking at that location specifically is actually some demarcations that show kind of the pedestrian, kind of a dashed green boxes to kind of indicate that it's more than just pedestrians crossing, there's cyclists crossing here. This is one element where I think having that leading pedestrian interval that I kind of mentioned throughout is really important. So cyclists would get a head start along with pedestrians to get across that intersection. It's just, yeah, it is certainly a challenge. You definitely don't want to stop bike infrastructure at an intersection. So we've done our best to really indicate that this is a path crossing. And we've tried to do it at the safest location that we could. But great question.
Thomas, thank you for the comments.
Yeah.
And really thank you for everyone. Just looking at the list now, Tanner Thompson, previous chair of the Bike Walk Commission, has joined us. He was on the early part of this. So Tanner, thank you for joining us. Emily, thank you for joining us. Emily's the current chair of the Bike Walk Commission. I think there's a lot of things to celebrate in here, but really it's been an effort, a Herculean effort of a lot of people to get us to this point over a lot of time. Thanks for the work, everyone.
Okay, if there's nothing else, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. This was a great meeting and I'm really happy with all of the questions we've received. If there's anything else, feel free to follow up after the meeting. We're happy to answer any questions that you have. And then look towards the end of the month, maybe early into the new year for the full plan, depending on how long it takes for us to incorporate the comments. And that's all. So I hope everyone has a good evening and good night.
All right, and everybody mark your calendars for the presser at 9:30 a.m. on the 11th out on Connecticut Avenue at Rampart.
Great. Thanks, Jim.
All right,
Have a good night,
great one.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.